never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Good morning, Patriots, from all over the country and from around the world, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to another episode of You Made It Political. We're broadcasting live from Clark Studios right here in Rochester, New York. We have an issue on our hands. We have a very, very big problem, a problem that's really starting to stress me out and parents all over the country and potentially all over the world, but mostly here in the United States of America. And you can leave it to governors like Gavin Newsom and now Kathy Hochul to be the catalysts to lead the charge on the liberal playbook of insanity. It's almost like they're competing with each other as to who could be more liberally insane. If you want to know what's going to happen in New York, all you got to do is look over at what Newsom's doing in California and sometimes vice versa. So whatever Newsom is about to roll out for the crazies over on the West Coast, you better believe that it's only just a matter of time before it actually hits New York State. We saw it with the teachers' unions, and we continue to see it with the teachers' unions. Whatever happens in school there tends to happen here. Whatever happens on the workforce and the labor unions over in California ultimately moves its way over to New York. It's almost like California is a test case and a breeding ground for what I like to refer to as the liberal insanity. Well, you better believe that Governor Newsom is at it again. Only this time he is test piloting, and we all knew this was coming. We knew it was coming. Newsom is test piloting California going statewide with vaccine mandates. And, you know, the most disturbing part about this is that parents have been screaming about these mandates for so long now, for months now. And there's so much uproar about it. First Biden mandates it nationally, or at least he's trying to mandate it nationally. There's been uproar. Republican governors are now suing the shit out of Biden, left, right, and center. I don't know many people who are actually in favor of these mandates. Like, I ask around, and I just don't hear from either party, Democrat or Republican, whether they're in favor of these mandates. A lot of people think it's too soon. A lot of people, however, have turned a blind eye. And they've turned a blind eye because it's easier for them to just put their head in the sand and act like nothing's going wrong here because they really need their income. A lot of people have bit the bullet on the healthcare situation here in New York State, which, by the way, is the only state in all of New York that has actually implemented such a disastrous and horrific guideline. I mean, I don't know where Kathy Hochul gets off thinking that this is a good idea for New York. Not any of the other 49 states are doing this. So why are Democrat states or far left liberal states like New York and California, why do these governors think that we're going to actually go along with something like this when the rest of the country clearly has an issue? Well, it's because we're the breeding ground. We're the test case. We're America's pilot when it comes to rolling out the most liberal, insane, authoritarian measures that you could possibly shove on the American people. And we've bent over and we've dealt with it one blow at a time. But now they're coming for the kids. And this is where I have a very, very serious problem. I mean, I've had a problem with the Democrats and Biden since January 20th. But I have an even bigger problem now, knowing that they're coming for our kids, people. And I've been saying this for a year now. I said, as soon as we give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And I looked at what California was doing over and over and over again. And sure enough, every single time Newsom rolled something out, New York followed. Cuomo was quick to jump on it. And we know this is all being orchestrated from the top. I can just hear the Biden administration sitting around the table saying, hey, let's roll this out. Do you think the American people will buy it? Hell no, they won't buy it. But if we get California and New York on board, maybe we can slowly start to force it onto the American people. And by the time it's too late, they won't have a leg to stand on, because we'll just push them all beyond breaking point, to the point where maybe they just won't complain anymore. So let's use California and New York as the test pilot. Well, cards are now on the table to launch the vaccine mandate statewide in California for kids. We know it already hit the country's private workforce. We know it's hit the federal workforce. We know it's hit the military, the healthcare sector. Now they're coming for our kids. And it's basically the last stop to any sort of medical freedom that we experience here in the United States. Once they get a hold of the kids, it's game over, which is why people are out there fighting across the United States, and why, before you know it, we're going to start to look like what's going on in Australia as far as the very aggressive protests, which, by the way, people, just to touch on this real quick, Australia, even though we see protests after protest after protest, and we're kind of wondering what's going to happen over there, because we know America's next. Besides Canada. I mean, Canada's kind of still figuring it out. They're getting their head around it. But we know what's coming to America. And if you want to see what's going to happen to America, just look at Australia. Australia's been fighting these mandates, these lockdowns, for months now. I mean, I guess Australia is the test pilot for the rest of the world. See, the New World Order is trying to see what they can get away with in Australia, just like the Democrats are using New York and California to see what they can get away with here in the United States. So it's very coordinated and coerced as to what Australia is doing to their people on a nationwide level, similarly to what California and New York are doing to America here domestically. But it's very important that we watch what's going on in Australia. And what's very encouraging for me to see lately is that the police force in Australia are saying, you know what? We've had enough. And they're actually starting to take the sides of the Australian people. If you've been following the protests over there, we've seen them get more and more aggressive. We've seen Australia attack the police, go after them, break barricades. I mean, they're done. They are sick of this. And this is even without guns, because only just a few years ago, Australia confiscated all of their guns. But lately, the police are starting to say, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. We're taking the side of the Australian people. And there's beautiful pictures out there of the law enforcement agencies laying down their weapons and standing in solidarity with the Australian people. So it's very nice to see. We're not there yet in America, because we haven't hit rock bottom as a nation. And I get people asking me this all the time. When do you think the American people are going to stand together collectively and fight back against this very tyrannical government? And my answer is always the same: when we all collectively hit rock bottom. See, we haven't hit rock bottom yet. We haven't even come close. People are still collecting a cushy paycheck. They're still driving their 2 luxury cars. They still got their job. So until we hit rock bottom, the situation in America isn't going to get any better. And I'm not just referring to a handful of people or a minority of people. I'm referring to America as a whole, just like Australia has collectively just hit rock bottom. The UK's getting there. We still have some way to go in Canada, and we're not even close in the United States of America. So the fight will really start to get aggressive here when we finally all hit rock bottom and come together. It's no different than a drug addict who wants to recovery. The first step of recovery is admitting that you have a problem. Well, if you don't admit you have a problem, you're never going to recover. It's the same thing that's going on here in the United States, that half the country doesn't want to admit there's a problem. I think they know there's a problem, but they don't want to admit it. Well, Newsom over in California is now going to help us get to admission much quicker. Because even though a lot of the Americans have bent over to the mask mandates and they've bent over to the vaccine mandates and all of the other lockdowns and tyrannical measures that the government's thrown our way since Trump left office, the one thing that I don't think they're going to bend over is to vaccinating their children. Why they'd vaccinate themselves and not, be concerned for themselves, but then all of a sudden say, well, there's no way in hell I would ever vaccinate my children, still baffles me. You'd think that if you were concerned for your children that you wouldn't get vaccinated yourself. But then again, I guess most people are going to have to pick and choose their battles. But one battle that they're not willing to sacrifice, or one battle that they're willing to fight immensely for, is vaccination for the kids. And it's coming. And I think it's coming as early as January next year for everybody over the age of 5. I've listened to Fauci. He's pushing it aggressively. I've listened to the FDA. They're pushing for approval ASAP. And it's all being orchestrated and conducted by the teachers' unions. And you don't get any more insane when it comes to the teachers' unions than you do over in California. New York's second, but California takes the cake as far as the liberal insanity is concerned. We've seen what they've done with changing high school names and taking down statues and making mountains out of molehills. They are relentless over in California. Relentless. And we know how insane most Californians are, because Newsom blew by his recall election with a 70% no. I mean, this is the kind of crazy that we're talking about over there. And there's a lot of crazies here in New York State. So you better believe that if New York passes this statewide mandate, if they pass it in California, then you better believe New York State is right around the corner. So the teachers' unions are licking their chops right now, rubbing their hands, thinking we are this close to jabbing all of the kids, not only just in Democrat states, but in Republican states as well. And if you're in Florida or if you're in Texas, and I'm going to regurgitate and repeat what many activists have already said across the country, you're not safe in red states either. Because you have to remember here, any public school system across the United States gets federal funding. So if these states want their federal funding and they need that federal funding, you better believe that a lot of these states may just in fact bend over or whore themselves out for that financial assistance that a lot of these public school systems desperately seek for every single year. Our taxpayers only pay a very small percentage of the entire bill. This is why we constantly get railroaded here in New York State, because they need that statewide funding. This is why we're in the mess we're in to begin with. This is why Board of Education members stare at you like deer in the headlights every time you go up and present very logical data that you know would win in court any day of the week. But they just stare at you because they think, well, our hands are tied here and we need our money, so sorry. So money is, in fact, the root of all evil, and it's what's destroyed Democrat states, especially throughout this entire pandemic. So it's very important, New York, or wherever else you are in America, that you pay very, very close attention to what's going on in California. Because if you are not for these mandates for your children, okay? You may have got vaccinated for your job. You may have gotten vaccinated to stay in the military or to continue practicing healthcare. But if you are dead set against what's going on as far as the children are concerned, then you really need to get your head out of your ass right now, pay attention, and start fighting. And we need to watch very closely what's going on in California because, like I said in the beginning of the show, it is coming to New York State. It always has, and it always will. As long as we are a very, very deep, deep blue state led predominantly by the Democrats from every perspective possible, just like California, we don't stand a chance once the wheels are set in motion. So before we give New York any idea or inclination that we're okay with this, we need to step up and fight. And the fights have already begun. It's been beautiful to see. I now see them downstate as well. Before I was thinking, where the hell's New York City with this whole thing? Well, finally, protests have started erupting across New York City. So California is already requires several vaccines for students, including diphtheria, chickenpox, mumps, measles, rubella, and hepatitis B. And now Newsom wants to put on the table vaccine mandates in schools. Let's break this down for you and see how quickly this whole thing is coming now. So Newsom says statewide vaccine mandate in schools is on the table. I'm not surprised at all. Leave it to Newsom in crazy California to kind of be the test case and the pilot for all things liberal when they're trying to push this insanity throughout the United States. He said the mandate is on the table for students 12 and older, and his office is discussing it with school districts across the state. Now, we know that's BS. We know Newsom isn't actually discussing it with schools or school districts. What he's discussing it with are the teachers' unions, who are basically have already said, you better jab these kids. You better jab these kids or you're going to have a freaking war on your hands. Once again, we're being held hostage by the teachers' unions. We always are. We've been held hostage by them since the whole beginning of this nonsense, which is why you don't see red states locked down. You only see blue states locked down. I mean, trust me, if the teachers' unions had their way in Florida, those kids would be masked up and locked down as well. The only thing stopping that from happening is a governor like DeSantis. The only reason Texas is going strong and doesn't care about how many COVID cases they have is because Abbott's in the way. Newsom over in South Dakota, they're all in the way. But one governor alone can't do it. The people need to step up because if Newsom or if Abbott or Newsom or DeSantis don't win re-election, guess what? There's nothing in the way anymore of the tyrannical administration that we have in power right now from implementing these into red states as well. So Newsom said we're working very closely with their staff to understand the logistical challenges and hurdles. So again, not the ethical challenges, not the moral challenges, not the fact that this thing's been on the market for 5 seconds. None of that is of concern for Newsom or the teachers' unions. They don't care about any of that. They don't care that clinical trials aren't done until 2023. All they care about is the logistical challenges that jabbing all the kids across the state may present. That's their only concern. So to me, that's mind-blowing and absolutely disgusting that they're not actually concerned about the potentially harmful challenges that the vaccines present. And again, whether you believe everything you see regarding VAERS or not is neither here or there. The fact of the matter is we are not through clinical trials yet, not even close. But that's not of concern for these Democrat teachers unions or these Democrat governors. They're just ready and willing to plow forward with this agenda, regardless of how many people have been harmed, regardless of how much data out there says that we're not ready for this yet. They don't care about any of that. They want to go guns blazing, full steam ahead. Guys, go ahead and call into the show. We do have lines open. Call into the show, 585-643-7711. I will go ahead and put that up on the screen. Call on the show if you are an outraged parent. That number again is 585-643-7711. We'll put you on air. I want to hear what all of you think about this because I can't be the only one outraged, furious, and absolutely pissed off over this whole situation. So again, that number is 585-643-7711. Newsom says there is an issue that we are working through that are unique and distinctive by region. Yeah, the only issue I could think of is the fact that this thing isn't safe yet, and we haven't proven it safe. And so we're in that process of adjudicating the larger consideration. As we said, it's on the table, but no announcement to make today. So fortunately, he hasn't actually announced that it's going to happen. But the fact that it's on the table and the fact that the FDA says they're rushing for approval on children 2 through 11 by January, or at least 5 through 11 by January, leads me to believe that everybody is working very aggressively and very closely to get the job done by January. And you better believe there's going to be a war of governors coming out. But another war that I think is going to be coming out, a war that we haven't seen yet, is the mama bears. I think this is what's going to finally be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I'm hoping, and look it, we got BLM on our side. Listen, regardless of what I think about BLM as an organization, regardless of the fact that what they did all summer long, burning down cities, buildings, terrorizing America, it's all wrong, but I could sure use a little BLM right now with this fight. I could sure use the black community. I think that's what we need right now, and they are equally as pissed. The black community is one of the highest percentages of demographics that have not gotten the vaccine, and they want absolutely nothing to do with it. Well, we know what happened in New York City last week. I did a show on this. 3 black women went to a restaurant. They were denied entries because they couldn't proof of vaccination. The hostess told them to leave. They got in a big fight over it. They were charged with assault. Well, the leader of Black Lives Matter in New York City got a hold of this and did a protest the other day. I think we do have a caller right now. I'm going to patch through to the show. Who do we have here live on the show right now? Let's see here. Hello, do you hear us okay?
I do.
Who do we have here calling in? This is great. I love our call-ins, and it's working perfectly. Who do we have on the phone?
This is Sarah Upchurch.
Sarah, how are you? Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. I have to say, Matt, I'm totally disgusted with what's going on. I feel like I'm living in a leap, a quantum leap here. Mm-hmm. It's totally disgusting. Right now, we're about 3 weeks into the school year, and I have received nonstop phone calls from the principals over at the schools regarding my children and their masking. Our district currently is the only one that I am aware of at this point that is requiring PCR testing, while other districts allow these kids to rapid test. Our district
are
won't
you
allow
in, Sarah?
That. So, Wayne Central.
Okay.
Yep. So if they so much have as a sniffle, they have to be PCR testing, which means that they're mandatorily taken out for at least 3 days until we get those results back.
Why? Which is ridiculous. And why do you think Wayne County is obsessing over this PR test when so many other counties in New York State are either isolating one kid that might have a case or not requiring testing and isolating the entire class? Because I know what's happening. You're right. We're only a few weeks in here, and the madness has already began. I've seen it in my own district here in Ontario County. Why do you think Wayne County is going way overboard with the situation?
To be honest, I don't know. Because at this point, we have they said that we're in the red zone. When we received our letters throughout the summer stating that, the masking policies and such, they stated that the children would be able to remove their masks at their desks during lecture if we were not in the red zone. Right from the start of school, we were informed that we were in the red. So these kids are not allowed. My children have come home several times and told us that that they're not being allowed their mask breaks as they should be. Some teachers are very lenient about it, and other teachers are very strict about it. To be honest, I have no idea because we have the vaccine out now, right? So here we are. I just don't. I can't. The science, right? It's the science. I'm a nurse. I know about the science.
Right.
Yeah, I am. And so here I am. Well, everyone's getting vaccinated, right? So how many people do we have wandering around the streets right now, vaccinated, who are carrying this virus, shedding this virus, showing no symptoms because they're, quote unquote, vaccinated, right? Exposing each other. I mean, this is just, it's totally absurd.
It is
totally absurd. It's a virus.
Exactly. And you talk about following the science, and what's interesting to me is that we only want to follow certain parts of the science. I mean, I thought, and you as a nurse can clarify, I thought when we're supposed to look at the science that we're supposed to look at all of the science, not just pick and choose what parts of the science we want to pay attention to based on our own narrative. Why do you think so many Americans, I mean, Sarah, I know you are with it. I'm with it. There's a lot of us that are actually with it. We get it. Why do you think so many of the people in your county are turning a blind eye to this? Is it because they genuinely don't get it, or do they just not want to deal with the conflict? I mean, why do you feel like you're alone in your district?
I think you. I don't feel alone. We have a Moms for Liberty here, which I partake in. And so we do have a lot of like-minded people that we can, turn to and discuss this with. But I do think you hit the nail on the head. Essentially, these are people who feel like if they stand up, they're standing alone. They don't realize how many like-minded people there are and how many people they truly do have behind them. So we're in a situation where, oh, geez, if I send my kid unmasked or if I refuse this PCR testing, then I'm looking at conflict and I'm standing by myself and I look like that, squeaky wheel, and I don't want to deal with that. Or, also you have people that genuinely need to work.
Right.
We have to work and we have to go and we have to earn our money so that we can feed our families and pay our bills, and we can't afford to be out of work so that we can keep our children home and resist this sort of thing. So I think it's just complying to kind of make life easier at this point. And it's really sad because I think that people don't understand that essentially what you're doing in the long run is making your life more difficult.
Well, it's
if
communism.
People don't start standing up, absolutely.
It's coming. I mean, I don't think they realize that they are literally. I mean, you can call them. You can say we're a free country, but this is not a free country. Them being forced to subject themselves to a medical procedure just so they can earn a living. That's not a free country. Do you think they realize this?
No, I think that they're learning. And I think you're absolutely right when you say that this is going to be the breaking point for a lot of people. A lot of people are willing to sacrifice themselves. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are willing to comply and just move on with things. But then you get the mama bears. You're talking about our children now. Things that we love greater than ourselves, right, and our jobs and our livelihoods. You start messing with our kids, and you're going to start seeing us, and people are going to start rising. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get very ugly.
And to be honest, that's music to my ears, and I was going to ask you that. Yesterday I actually posted on my Facebook profile, you may have seen it. I said, listen, if they mandate the jab for 5+ by January, what's everybody's plan here? What are you guys going to do? Because I hear a lot of uproar about it. I hear a lot of anger about it and protest about it. But what are you going to actually do when it comes time to making that decision in January when they do force it on our kids. And I honestly believe that is the direction we're going. What do you hear on the street from other parents, from other moms? Are people talking about this yet, or do they not believe it's going to happen this quickly?
I think that from what I'm understanding, we have two sides here, and there are parents who are very, very convinced that the vaccination is the answer, even though I don't even want to get into discussing the vaccination because this is not a vaccination. I worked in immunology,
Right.
so
Okay.
that's opening a whole nother box there. But they feel that this is the answer, and but then there's a whole wide array of people who are like, as soon as this comes down the tube, I'm pulling my children out of school. That's it. We're done. We're pulling our kids. We're moving to Florida. We're doing this. The house is going up. So there's a lot of people who that's going to be their bottom line. That's going to be the point where they're like, okay, no more. We're done. I'll put a mask on my kids.
Right.
But that's as far as I'm going with it.
Right. And I think a lot of people are in the same position as you. I mean, hundreds of comments came in yesterday saying, that's it, we're done. We're homeschooling, or we're pulling our kid, or we're moving state. And, from what I see, Sarah, and you might be able to weigh in on this a little bit, from what I hear, homeschooling's not even safe. Have you heard these types of comments? Can you weigh on that topic at all?
Well, and I don't know if it's fact or fiction, but from what I've heard, if you try to homeschool your children with the state's curriculum in any sort of manner, then you still have to have your children, abide to these protocols. If they place a vaccine mandate and you try to use the district's or the state's curriculum, then you will have to have your kids vaccinated, even though they're at home and pose no risk to the community whatsoever.
Again,
which to me screams agenda.
Yep.
I mean, come on.
I was just going to say that. You can't, there is no disputing that. I mean, this is very mob rule mentality right now, because if your kid's at home homeschooling, basically what they're doing is they're holding you hostage still by saying, if you want to use our curriculum because our curriculum may look better for your kids getting into college, well, you can't do that unless you go or abide to our agenda. So they're holding our kids hostage, whether they're physically there or not, even though we all know that makes zero sense whatsoever. None whatsoever.
It's really quite disgusting. And, I have a senior in high school right now, and he has worked his ass off, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but he has worked his butt off to keep his grades up and to do what he needs to do. He wants to go to medical school. He wants to do all this, and we're an unvaccinated house. Nobody in my house has been vaccinated. Nobody in my house will be vaccinated, period. And, now we're facing a situation where he's going to have to be starting college in September, and most colleges are mandating the vaccination. And he's sitting in a situation where, he's looking at me like, I'm going to have to get this vaccine. I have spent my entire life working up to this moment, and now I'm going to have nothing. They're going to destroy these kids' futures. They're essentially holding their futures and everything that they've worked for hostage. Either you comply or you don't have a future. You won't have a career. You won't have the ability to move around this world the way you want to. You can't go here. You can't go there. I mean, are you kidding? You can't be out in a world with masks on. We go to Walmart without masks on. We go without masks. We do anything we want without masks on. But when we go to school, we can share that. We can have play dates. We can have friends over. We don't have to wear masks, and we can share whatever we have with our friends then. But when we go to school, nope, we have to have our masks on. We have to be vaccinated. We have to comply to the government.
Yeah, and the most disgusting. And I'm so sorry about your situation. I mean, I can't even imagine what it'd be like to be a senior right now. And I thank God that my kid's only 4. But I think about you guys all the time, and how disastrous the situation is. More so for you that have kids in high school, because this is it for them. I mean, they have to make some very, very serious decisions in the next 5 seconds, which they should never have been made to do, especially over something as minuscule as this. And I'm calling coronavirus minuscule because we all know the survival rate, 99.98% survival rate. We know that most of the country's vaccinated. We know that, a handful of people more are going to get vaccinated. It seems like the safer we get, the more insane we act.
I mean, I'm a nurse. I'm just a lowly nurse. And the fact of the matter is, if I have this knowledge, so do these doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break. It's a virus. If we had the ability to eradicate viruses, RSV would not be here.
Right.
RSV has been killing babies and preemies for years and years and years. It's still here. And why don't we see RSV in older children? Because they've all had it as babies. They've built up the antibodies to it. The only way you're never going to get rid of it. The absolute only way for this ever to go away for us is to I mean, really, I think I posted on one of your things that we should just have a COVID party like we used to
And
have
just
for
get done with
chickenpox.
it. Just be done with it. Yeah.
Honestly, and I do realize that people get very, very sick. My brother has COVID right now. He's at home. He's sick. I'm not disputing the fact that you can get very ill and everybody handles it differently, but the fact of the matter is the only way that we're going to get on with life is by exposing ourselves, building our immunity, and having antibodies so that the next time we're exposed, it's less non-issue, period.
Say that last part again. You cut out on us, Sarah. What was that last part?
I said that the only way that you're ever going to get rid of it is until we are exposed, until our body has built immunity and created antibodies to it. And then every time you're exposed from that point on, it's less, it's less, it's less. And we don't have the same kind of illness. That's the only way that we're going to get on with life, period. I mean, the flu shot is a prime example of that. If we were able to eradicate a virus like that, the flu wouldn't be here. Yet every year, everybody goes out and gets their flu shot. Well, some people do not. And here we are. I mean, it's a non-issue. Why is it a non-issue? People still die from it. I mean, it's a part of our world now. And who brought that? Who brought that in here?
Right. The very people that claim
Do
they're
we want
trying
to
to
have
protect
that
us.
conversation?
Well, we all know. I think we all know who brought it in. The very people who claim to protect us are the ones who had a lot to do with it. And it's not even conspiracy theorist anymore, or conspiracy theory anymore. It was funded, and thank God Rand Paul is trying to bust that case wide open. And I think we're going to get to the bottom of this sooner than we think. But still, unfortunately, the tyranny in the United States, whether we find out the truth or not, sadly, I think is here to say. But Sarah, listen, thank you so much for calling in. I do appreciate that. It was a nice surprise and great to hear from somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, because it's always nice for experts like yourself to weigh in. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate the call in.
I appreciate your time.
And thank you for the
Matt.
support. Thank you so much for the support and the show and everything that you do to help us in the community from a healthcare perspective. I can't thank you all enough.
Well, and we appreciate you because your voice means more than you know. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think they're alone in their thoughts and their feelings. And people like you, it creates a lot of opportunity for people to feel like they're not alone and that they can speak up and stand up for themselves. So we thank you as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And everybody watching this, I think that's a great thing to really note here. You're not alone. I mean, Sarah's calling in. She has friends that, because of their little support group and their Moms for Liberty. I do want to give you a quick shout out. Go ahead and tell us your group. What's this group all about?
Well, Moms for Liberty, it's mainly about standing up for our children, battling for our children and their rights and their freedoms, the things that are being taken from us, the masks, the potential vaccine mandates, their inability to go to school and be children, have their lives and experience the same kind of lives that we did growing up.
And how do people find you? How do, if there's people who aren't aware of this group, how do they find you?
Well, I think the most important thing is just talking,
Okay.
conveying your feelings to other people, because people are everywhere. We're growing by the day. People are hearing about us through word of mouth. We're on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook, Moms of Liberty. They're opening in every county. I think there was another one established for Monroe County just recently.
Great.
So look them up.
So Moms for Liberty or Moms of Liberty?
I believe it's Moms for Liberty.
Moms for Liberty. Okay. And I have seen you ladies grow, and thank you all so much for what you're doing. And Sarah, thank you again for calling in. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
So clearly, I mean, there's a lot of frustration here. A lot of frustration. Guys, for those of you who do want to call in, we're taking call-ins now. It was great to hear from Sarah, a member here in upstate New York. That number is 585-643-7711. We'll be right back after this commercial break. We're going to get into China and their obsession with our Second Amendment rights. We'll be back right after this break. You Made It Political would not have been possible without this book right here, Expert Secrets by my man, Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson wrote this book to help people like you and I become leaders in our space, to gain an audience and a public following that respects, loves, and watches our shows on a daily basis. Expert Secrets will help you find your voice and give you the confidence to become a leader. It'll show you how to build a mass movement of people whose lives you can affect. And most importantly, it'll teach you how to become an expert authority in your field where people actually pay you for your advice. The best part about Expert Secrets is it's absolutely free. You just pay for shipping, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, or a live YouTube streamer. You want to grab a copy of this book. It'll teach you everything from building your audience to driving traffic to making this a full-time job so you can get paid for your passion.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. We actually have another call-in today. Very hot topic we've been dealing with. Kayla from Lockport. Kayla, how you doing? You're on You Made It Political. Pull you in just a second. Kayla, bear with us. There we go.
Can you hear me? Okay.
All right, you're on with You Made It Political. Kayla, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. So clearly you've been listening to the conversation, and...
Oh, my gosh. Yes. I've been listening to every conversation that you have, Matt, and every conversation that anyone from the right side and the people who really follow the science and the people who really research for themselves, I've been pulling everything together, and I can't believe that this is how far we've come.
Mm-hmm.
I do research on my own. I'm looking into all this stuff, and I'm like, how did we get this far? This virus, like you said before, has a 99.98% survival rate. Why? Why are we doing these mandates? Why are we doing these lockdowns? Why? And I love what Sarah said, because what she said couldn't have put it any perfectly. Like, we didn't do this for the flu. Why would we do this for this?
Right.
It's actually worse. Like, the flu is actually worse than what coronavirus actually is. And if you do the research and look into that, you would know. And to even think about mandating our children for vaccines for a virus that they have poses no threat to them, it's insane. It's insane.
It is.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, what do the other parents in your area think about these potential mandates that may be coming as early as January?
I think that a lot of people, I try to stay around like-minded people because it's just so hard. And you just know, Matt, like, you get tired of fighting, and you get tired of, like, trying to lead them in the right direction. So I kind of stay around a lot of like-minded people, but a lot of my friends are like the same thing that Sarah said. The masks were okay, and even that I can't stand. I have 2 unmask your children signs out in my yard, and I try to get my kids to not wear their masks, but they're so petrified of these teachers. And like my son told me the other day, he goes, they just got, so I have a son who is a sophomore in high school, and then I have a kindergartner. And my son came home, the sophomore, and he said, Mom, they've gotten more strict. He said, my teachers who used to be more relaxed about the mask and let us have it below our nose now tell us that we can't do that anymore. They're just trying to instill the fear and keep it alive in these poor kids, because even my son told me the other day that kids in his school are like, well, we're going to get vaccinated. Like, they're all like, our parents want us to get vaccinated, and it's just the right thing to do. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, the brainwashing.
Oh, my God. So
the brainwashing in the community is just ridiculous right now, and it's no one's able to think for themselves, which is really annoying me right now. No one's allowed to critically think. You have your kids now who are probably walking around the halls thinking, what's wrong with my friends here? How, what don't they understand? Why do you think their teachers are acting even more tyrannical than last year?
I think that they are. I don't think that it's. I don't think that I know the teachers in our area aren't so, like, they're not that left. You know what I mean? They're kind of in the center.
Right.
Because I always ask my son all the time, like, what are they teaching you? What are they doing? Like, I am always wanting to know everything. And he'll tell me, like, no, Mom, they're cool. Like, they don't tell me about their political. I think that it's the pressure from the district.
Right.
Again, they're getting money. We need to follow the money in all this,
it's all
because
about
that's
the money.
what's leading in everything. I'm a registered nurse, okay? So I see the things that go on and the things that happen. And COVID, it's all for money. The more people who are, think about it. You go to a hospital now, you go in, you say you have you think you broke your ankle, right? They're like, hey, I think I broke my ankle. I need an x-ray. They're like, well, you need a COVID test. Well, no, I don't want a COVID test.
I mean, why? Since when did you need a COVID test or a flu test when you had a broken arm? I mean, you didn't in the past.
All about the money. That's what they want. They want more testing, more case, more. And you know what? You know what? It's also, Matt. They don't report on deaths. They report on cases. Cases. That's all you hear about cases. Yeah. Well, I don't want to hear about cases anymore. Because do we report every case, RSV, proof, and all that other stuff? It's bull. They do it to keep the fear alive. And I think the reason why they're getting more strict in schools is to force this vaccine mandate. And, Kathy Hochul said it the other day in her meeting. Didn't you hear when she said, when she was in the Bronx, and she said that, they're working on the vaccine for kids, and it's just going to be like how you need with anything else, how you get into kindergarten with your shot record. This is not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing at all. And I'm sick of them. I'm sick of them normalizing that statement. And when you say it enough, people are going to start to think, it is the same thing. And then you watch all your friends who have been so badly brainwashed, and you're trying to shake them out of this. It's too late. The propaganda machine is in full effect.
It's just so devastating because, like my kids, they understand. You know what I mean? Like, my oldest, I brought him to the rally with me in Buffalo. We just had one, a huge one, not in Rochester. That was a great one. I wish I could have been there to that one. But we had one in Buffalo on Saturday, and I brought my oldest son with me. And he was like, Mom, this is just so great, because they feel alone, too. Imagine how these kids feel. That's what I mean. I just saw an article the other day, and it said, like, suicide ideations in children from 11 to 16 have skyrocketed. Yeah, you think? Do you really think? You've isolated these poor kids. You don't let them see facial expressions. You are making them fearful that they are spreading disease to get their teachers sick, and like they're killing people. Yeah, you think that they're suicidal? They're already emotionally unstable at that age. They have all types of hormones and stuff like that. This is crazy.
I was just going to ask you what psychological.
Well, anyway,
I was just going to ask you what psychological damage do you think? Huge.
They think about peer pressure, right? Like, kids doing drugs and smoking cigarettes and all that other stuff. You know, you have these pressures, and these kids don't know the difference between right and wrong. So a lot of them get involved in drugs and smoke cigarettes because that's what's the in crowd. That's what the cool kids are doing. In order to fit in, they feel like they have to mold themselves. So it's going to be the same way with this vaccine thing. How do you think they're going to segregate our children? When Jacob and Jason and Allison and Ashley, they're all vaccinated, and then the other 2 or 3% of the kids are not. You know what I mean? They're going to feel some type of way, and they don't even have control. It's not even a decision. It's just the saddest thing I've ever seen. I don't know. Like I said, the research that I've done, these kids, it displays in a common cold in them. And if you even look at the letter circulating, there was a lady who wrote to the Erie County Department of Health, and she asked for all the numbers in the areas, all the deaths, all the cases from the start of the pandemic to the beginning. And they wrote her a letter back and said they don't have any of that information. The only things they have reported from New York State Department of Health is one COVID death from the ages of 0 to 19 from March of 2020 to July of 2021. Unmask our children now.
Mm-hmm.
Unmask our children now. To talk about a vaccine, and that's all they have to even bring up a vaccine. You are out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're out of line.
And we all share.
Ever.
We all share the same frustration that you have. I mean, I hear you screaming right now and just really trying to let out your frustration, and that's what so many of us experience here in New York. And we're not alone, Kayla. Sarah, who just called in.
I know.
All of the other moms and dads, except we hear from the mama bears a lot more. And I posted this a month ago. I said, where the hell are the fathers right now? Where are the dads in this situation?
Right.
Why is it only the moms out there screaming from the... Can you help me out here? Why are most fathers not fighting?
I always say that. I'm like, I think the fathers want to fight the physical fight. Psychological, they don't stand. Like, men are more physical. You know what I mean? Like, if it came down to a civil war, they
like when we're ready to call me when it's time to put my war paint on.
That's right, exactly. And I think that's exactly what it is. But it is true, Matt. I mean, a lot. I am so proud to see the women standing for their children and for their freedoms. Like, it's like the most. I love every second of it. I mean, I hate that we're in this situation, but to see them all come out in like this, it's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, because they are speaking out for their kids. They are really protecting their kids, and they are ready to put themselves in the front line to do whatever. Think about it like me. I'm gonna lose my job, so I'm gonna lose my job, and I'm willing to do that, to risk, to sacrifice for the freedoms that we should all have. I'm not losing my job for only me. I'm losing my job for everybody. If it don't stop here, it's never gonna stop. And it'll just keep going and going and going. That's why we have to stop it now. And actually, you know what? Make another point. When we were at that rally in Buffalo at City Hall in Buffalo, there was Antifa who showed up. Okay, so there was a couple of Antifa that showed up. And let me tell you something. We were just talking about women and men, and every single man that was at that protest pushed the women and children aside and went to Antifa. That's what the men do. Yep. And that's a whole other topic, Mac. We can talk about that all day, too, because there needs to be more masculine men. Stop this feminine bullshit for men. Sorry.
To be honest, I have my theory. I have my theory on the whole men's situation. I feel like, and it's very sad, that the men are willing to bend over to keep their cushy jobs, their $500,000 roof over their head, and their 2 luxury cars. Yeah. Where the women don't care. Yeah. They're willing to risk it all. Which I mean, we've really seen the bravery in all of you courageous mama bears. I mean, the guys watching the show right now are gonna hate me for saying this, because you know the whole saying, bros before, you know, we know how that sentence ends. And guys, I'm sorry I'm throwing you under the bus here. I really am. I love you all, and I thank you for the support. But man, we got to get out there. It can't just be the women fighting this fight. And if the guys, well, if the guys just stood up with you, I think we'd end this nonsense a lot quicker. If they just came, maybe they
You're
will.
so right.
Maybe they will with the mandate. Maybe they will when they force their own children to be jabbed. Maybe that'll be the match that finally gets lit under their ass.
I mean, it's got to be something. I think with men, too, a lot of them feel like a sense of pride, right? So they always feel like they have to be the provider. They have to be. So if anyone's going to have to go through and get the shot and do whatever, it's going to be them. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the woman.
Right.
So,
That's
like,
a good way to put it. Maybe
you know what I mean? So
maybe this is their version of going to war by taking one for the family. That's a good way to put it.
Because my fiance said the same thing. If it comes, you know, right now, thank God, right now, in his job, he doesn't have to. Because he's also a type 1 diabetic with heart issues. I told him, you can absolutely not get that vaccine. We all had COVID, Matt. We all have antibodies. I'm so sick of them saying, you know, well, we don't know how long the natural immunity lasts. Well, then freaking study it. Do some research, just like you did to freaking fast-track this vaccine. Why can't you study how natural immunity is? Because you know that it is true. And it is, I mean, nursing school 101, this is one of the first things we learn, is that natural immunity is better than acquired immunity. It wins every time. And that was my huge reasoning for not taking the vaccine as it was, because I'm like, if you're ignoring that, like, there's something else going on. Like, you don't need to be conspiracy-minded to know something ain't right with this. I mean, really. You really don't.
I mean, you nurses have exposed this BS a year ago.
Yes!
I mean, there's thousands of doctors.
Yes!
You're right. It's not even conspiracy theory anymore. I spoke about the fact that Dr. Robert Malone, who I'm sure you know of, Dr. Robert Malone was one of the creators for the mRNA technology, who went on Sean Hannity last week, September 22nd. You could follow the podcast. I put a link to it on my page. And Dr. Robert Malone said, listen, this vaccine is actually causing infections to accelerate in people who catch coronavirus.
The freaking FDA themselves. The freaking FDA themselves, when they had that meeting panel where they met about the booster shots, they said that was a 9-hour meeting. I listened to every single word because I ain't got nothing else better to do. And they said, Dr. Kirsch from the FDA said the vaccine is killing more people than it's saving. For every 2 people, or for every 1 person that the vaccine saves, it kills 2 people. Period. It's the end of story right there. End of story. That is a fact. That is from the FDA, from that meeting, 9 hours. I'm sure people didn't watch it. And that's like, I'm like, guys, if you could just really take the time to take one whole day to just do some research, you would be like, oh my God.
Why don't you think people take the time, Kayla? Why do you think people aren't listening?
Because they're lazy, intellectually lazy. People are intellectually lazy and they're physically lazy, okay? Let you go to your doctor and him tell you, instead of getting the COVID-19 vaccine, I'm going to mandate you work out for 3 hours a day. You think they're going to listen to their doctor? No, but they sure will take a shot right in the arm because they don't have to do anything. They don't have to do anything.
Well, we'd rather pop supplements, right? We'd rather pop supplements and eat Big Macs at the same time in America.
Yes. Exactly. It's sad. And you know what? I'm guilty too. I mean, not with that, but I'm guilty of, like, for a lot of years, I didn't even follow what was going on in the government. Really, for a long time.
I don't think most people didn't. Most people didn't until Trump started warning us.
Yes. When he came, he opened up my eyes to a world of things that I never even knew. And think about it. Every single policy, every single plan that these people have put in place was calculated and for a reason. And now we're paying the price.
We are.
And they're banking on the fact that people are going to be intellectually lazy, and they're not going to take the time to do their research, and they're going to stare up at the TV, and the TV knows all. The TV tells them everything that they need to know. They never need to even open a book. Please. It's the most, it's bad, and I don't even know how we're ever, you give me, say, like, I think we'll get out of this, and I'm just like, are we going to get out of this, though?
No, we're not going to get out of it if we remain complacent. There's no way we're getting out of it if we sit on our ass and do nothing. I said it before and I said it again. love or hate Trump, he was the best thing
Yeah.
that ever happened to this country because he opened our
He
eyes
really was.
and gave us the courage
He opened
to
my
fight.
eyes.
He did.
Yeah.
We never would have
Yeah, he
thought
did.
in a million years to go up against a tyrannical government if Trump wasn't there for his very short time to say, hey, listen, when I'm gone, you guys got to keep fighting. And he
Yep.
gave us the courage to
Yep.
do that. We never
Yeah.
would have done this
Yeah.
if we didn't have somebody like Trump
No,
force us to get out there and do it.
it's so true.
I think it's great. I think it's
so true.
yeah. Kayla, thank you so much for calling in. Wow, I could sit here all day and talk to you. But before we go,
I
and I
know,
do
me
have to wrap
too,
this
Matt.
show up, but we'll have you back on. I think it'd be great to have you back on and maybe have this conversation
Absolutely.
another time for people to understand. But before we do wrap it up, I do want to say thank you so much as a healthcare provider
Absolutely.
here in New York State. I mean, not just for what you did during COVID, but for taking a stand. Because I can't imagine how scary
Thank
this
you.
is for you right now to now lose your job,
Oh, it's
lose your
awful.
income, and we know you're not alone. My own sister included. She's
Yeah.
done. She went in yesterday.
Good
She
for her.
didn't-
I
she
want
didn't-
to say thank you to your sister for doing that because
Thank you, but she's
a
done.
lot of you know what
She's done.
yeah.
They didn't
Good
have her
for
on the
her.
schedule.
Good for her. Good
Yep.
for her.
Yep. So nope,
That's what they have to do. That's what everyone has to do.
Yeah. And she can't get one of these travel nursing jobs because she has a high school student. So
And
you know,
yes,
everybody who thinks
that's
that
a
you're
whole
just going to
other
go,
topic that,
yeah, it's not that
that's
easy.
a whole other topic that we could talk about another day because you wouldn't even believe what they're doing to get nurses to come here now. They're not even making them have a New York State license to practice here. They're telling them they can come from any state and they don't have to have a license to practice in New York State. Illegal.
I think we'll have you back on and we'll talk
Yeah,
about
but
this
that's a-
because
that's a
I
whole other
think New
topic for a whole-
Yorkers, yeah, and it is a whole nother conversation. New York needs to hear from you nurses as to what's going on
Yeah.
on the ground and how
Yeah.
bad it's really going to get. Kathy Hochul has destroyed in just a few weeks the healthcare system.
Yes.
The same as Biden has
0 to
destroyed
100, these
America
people.
in just
Yes.
8 months.
Yes.
It's disastrous.
Yep.
Well, Kayla, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
We'll have you on again, okay?
All right.
Well, listen, we've heard from two very, very qualified and experienced nurses within the healthcare system. And I think that we need to really start to pay attention to these people. We got to pay attention to them. We have to listen to them. We have to really be aware, everybody, of what's going on in California because we know what's coming next in New York. It was great listening to these two call-ins. So, guys, please remember, every day now we're going to start having call-ins, 585-643-7711. Call into the show. I want to hear from you, the American people. I want to hear what you have to say about this entire situation because, after all, this is what the show is all about. Thank you so much for tuning in every day at 10 o'clock. We go live, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. We put the podcasts up on Amazon Music, Google, TuneIn, Spotify every day. We'll see you tomorrow. Please keep fighting. Please keep fighting that good fight. That's all we can do at this point. We have to stand up now before it's mandated for our kids. Good day.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.